Hi, kindergarten. Today we are going to be reviewing and looking at two books that you read this week. And we are going to talk about some things that we see that are the same in these books. So as we are rereading Yams and Go Vic, we are going to be talking about what do they both have that's the same. So as we're reading these stories again, I want you to be thinking of how they are alike. Okay, so the first book we're going to reread together is called Yams. And so this book was written by Brian Langdo and it's illustrated by Tom Gillett. And so we are going to talk first about this section right here that says read together. So Bud works on a farm and he feeds the yaks. So here's our character Bud right here in the corner. And over here in our illustration, we can see that these animals are called yaks. And so he feeds those yaks. And so we think about what will Bud feed the yaks before we read. So what are the things that he's going to be feeding them? So before we start though, let's remember I'm going to move myself here, our consonants that we learned about this week, which is Y and V. So say those with me, ready? Y and V. Good. So when we look in our story, we're going to see a lot of words that have that Y in them and then have that V in them. And so now let's look at our words to know. These are our sight words that we want to make sure we're practicing every single day and that we are going to be seeing a lot of those in our stories. So we want to get really good with those. So I'm going to say the word. I want you to repeat it after me. Ready? For. Good. Him, her, us. Okay, so we're going to see those words a lot in our story today. All right, so I'm going to read a sentence and then I want you to repeat that back and we're going to reread it together. Okay, and you can, if you have a book in front of you, I want you to touch those words as you read and match that up. And if you're at home on the computer, you can follow along with me too with my little cursor here. All right, here we go. Bud has yaks. Let's read it again. Bud has yaks. Big yaks. Read it again. Big yaks. The yaks are Vic and Val. Read that again. The yaks are Vic and Val. So we now know the characters' names of the yaks. And we know Bud, and now we know Vic and Val. And let's see what happens. Val. Bud pats her. Read it again. Val. Bud pats her. I got yams for us, Val. Yum. I got yams for us, Val. Yum. Vic. Bud pats him. Read that with me. Vic. Bud pats him. Yams, Vic. Read that again. Yams, Vic. Vic nods. Read that again. Vic nods. I think now we just figured out what Bud feeds the yaks. But Bud had no yams for him. Read that again. But Bud had no yams for him. Bud got bags. Read that again. Bud got bags. Big bags for yams. Read that again. Big bags for yams. Bud ran to his van. Bud ran to his van. Bud got in. Bud got in. To the yams. Read that again. To the yams. Do you see him pointing? He is trying to go get yams. Why? Do you remember why he's trying to go get yams? Let's go back. Who's he trying to get yams for? Who's he trying to get yams for? For Vic. Yes, look right here. He didn't have any yams left because Val got them all. That is our problem in this story. So let's think about this. Let's read these words really fast, and then we're going to go to the next story and read that together. These are our words to know here. So read those after me. Ready? Got, big, had, but, are, his. Good. So in the story, Bud got what? Did he get yaks? Did he get Vic? Or did he get yams? Good, he got yams. The yams are for blank and Val. Which one of these words would fit in there to make sense? Vic. Good. Vic and Val are the characters' names of our yaks. Vic and Val are they yaks? Are they Vic? Or are they yams? Good, they're yaks. That makes sense because that's the type of animal they are. All right, here we go. Now we're going to think. We just read our story, yams. We're going to think, how is Go Vic and yams, how are they a little bit alike? Because there's some things that are going to be in this story that were also in the other story, and there's going to be some similar things. So before we start, we're thinking about the story Go Vic, which is by Brian Langdo, illustrated by Tom Jellett, which, if you think, that's also the author and the illustrator of the other book. So that's one of the ways. But here's Bud, and look at him carrying his big, huge sack of yams. Bud must get yams for Vic and Val, but his van has no gas. That is a big problem. So we're going to think, what will Bud do? So maybe turn to a partner and think about what you think Bud is going to do. Or raise your hand and let your teacher call on you. Or you can tell somebody that's sitting next to you, what do you think Vic is going to do? I'm sorry, Bud is going to do so that he can get the yams for Vic. We still have consonant Y and consonant V. And our words to know are still the same. So I'm going to read those again, and I want you to repeat those after me. For, him, her, us. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to read, and then I want you to repeat after me. Bud got in his van. Bud got in his van, but it had no gas. But it had no gas. Bud got up on Vic. Bud got up on Vic. Bud sat on him. Bud sat on him. Go, Vic. Go, Vic. I think that's how he solved his problem with there not being any gas in his car. I think we just figured it out. Bud and Vic ran to the lot. Read that with me. Bud and Vic ran to the lot. Bud got yams. Read that with me. Bud got yams. Vic, look, I got us yams. Vic, look, I got us yams. Vic got his yams. Yum. Vic got his yams. Yum. Val got her yams. Yum. Val got her yams. Yum. But no yams for Bud. But no yams for Bud. Bud naps. All right, so you can pause the video here and you can work on these skills on this side, but we are going to talk now about some questions that I am wondering, And I want to see if you are wondering them too, and if you can help find those answers. And so I want you to be thinking about these. So you can pause the video and do these skills over here on the right. And then unpause the video, and we're going to talk about some questions. And we're going to talk about how Go Vic, and Yams, how they're the same. So let's think about that for a second. All right, boys and girls, so let's think about this for a second. Who are the main characters in both of the stories? There is one character that is the same, or more than one character that's the same. In this case, who are they in both stories? Can you tell your teacher, or pause the video, or say it out loud? Good. Bud, Vic, and Val are in both of my stories as the main characters. Very good. So what do they do in each story? I want you to pause and talk and tell somebody next to you, think about each story. In Yams, what do the characters do? And in Go Vic, what do the characters do? So in Yams, if you said Bud eats all of the yams, you are correct. In Go Vic, Bud and Vic get more yams, okay, because Val eats all the yams, So Val ate all the yams in the first story, and Bud had to go get more so Vic could have yams in the second story. All right, so how do these events connect? So how are these two things the same in both stories? What could we say that happened? What is happening in the first story that also happens in the second story? If you said that Vic and Val eat yams in both stories, then you are on the right track. You got that right. Good job. So how does Bud feel at the end of each story? So here's the ending of this story about how Bud feels. If you said Bud feels tired, you are right. He feels very, very tired. And let's go back and look at the last page of this one. He runs to his van. So how does he feel? If you said that he feels bad, that he ran out of yams, then you are on the right track. You got that right. If you're saying that maybe he feels determined, or that he wants to really go and solve his problem and help out his yaks, then you got that right too. So you are doing such a good job thinking about both stories and how they are the same today. Keep up the good work.